please.
Trustee Jones,
Here.
can you simultaneously hear and speak to the board members?
Yes, I can.
Is there anybody with you?
No.
And confirm that you received the board materials.
Yes.
Trustee Lowry,
I'm here.
same questions?
I am alone and I did receive the materials.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes.
Trustee Luna?
Here.
Trustee Lyons? Trustee Rand?
Here.
Trustee Myers?
Here.
Trustee Rhodes?
Here.
Trustee Rudd?
Here.
Trustee Stites?
Here.
Trustee Harford?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Well, we're joined today by a substitute provost, our assistant provost, and one of my very dear friends here at the university, Dr. Sharon Ho. And we're so glad to see you. I see you every meeting, and you're sitting in the audience, and I wave, but we don't get to hear from you very often, so it's a treat to get to hear from you. So if you would, and I know we have Dr. Ganad here as well, so he's representing this program. So if you would, Dr. Ho, get started, and we will go from here.
Yes. I'm Sharon Ho. I'm here to present the Bachelor of Science in Interdisciplinary Computing program, an exciting one. And then, of course, seeking approval from board. So before beginning this presentation, I want to thank the team and the leadership that led the development of this proposal. Dean Mike Gocher.
And Dr. Ho, if I can interrupt for half a second, I didn't mean to leave you out, Dr. Gocher. I know you were here, and I saw you, and then completely forgot when I started talking. So sorry about that.
Trying to be out of the camp.
I tried that too, and it does work.
Thank you. And then Dr. Jerry Gannard and Dr. Steve Fry. And then also who play key roles and then carried much of the workload for this proposal. And also I'd like to recognize the contribution of Dr. Doug Tolbert, and Associate Dean Kumar Yalamati, and then Dean Joe Slater for their involvement in the proposal's development. So what is interdisciplinary computing program? The proposed program is designed to prepare students with the knowledge of computing, artificial intelligence, and the data sciences to their chosen field. And also we call them cognitive area. And this program will provide students with expertise to bridge technology with a field such as business, agriculture, journalism, etc., and to integrate computing, computer science with emerging industry. The program will empower students to navigate and innovate in rapid evolving field. At its core is a collaborative effort across the university guided by College of Interdisciplinary Study and the College of Engineering. The degree will be housed in the College of Interdisciplinary Studies. Next slide, please. So the interdisciplinary computing programs require 120 credit hours of accumulation in 4 primary areas, 41 credit hours of general education for, 30 credit hours of computing for, 18 credit hours of intersectional for, 25 credit hours of cognitive area. In addition, there are 6 hours of elective courses. So this program is unique among Tennessee's public and private institutions. Distinguished is a structured cognitive area approach, which includes a sequence of 15 credit hours courses, equivalent to a minor in a non-computing area, and 10 credit hours of experiential learning through practice-based studio courses. Students gain hands-on experience applying classroom knowledge to real-world scenario in their chosen field. So on the slides, there are 6 cognitive areas listed there, but in the proposal, we have 14. technical areas there. And each cognitive area will have at least one faculty champion to build support and courses for the program. The proposed program will be delivered through a combination of a hybrid and face-to-face courses. This semester, 4 new courses already been developed for the program, 2 from computer science and 2 from College of Interdisciplinary Study. Next slide, please. So why is the program needed? So when we talk about need, we always want to make a connection with a state master plan and also university mission. So proposed the interdisciplinary computing program responds to the need identified in the state's higher education master plan, which calls for increasing computer science and data analytics offering across the public higher education. The proposed program also aligns with the university mission by preparing students to apply computing skills in ways that improve the quality of life for individuals, families, and communities. This program creates a pathway for adult learners. The program addresses Governor Lee's Future Workforce Initiative to provide a direct response to the emerging technology industry, making sure our students are first in line. Letters of support from regional employers and the organizations highlight the industry demand of graduate with interdisciplinary computing expertise. So we also kind of put a few comments from either external support and also from external program reviewers. And I like the last one, says this is the right program at the right time, and TTU is the right school for it. In addition, data were collected on student interest and workforce alignment. The development team conducted a student survey to assess interest in the proposed program. 94% of respondents indicate that Tennessee Tech should offer this degree, while 72% of respondents find the program aligned with their career goals. Employment data from multiple sources shows strong growing demand for computing professionals. Tennessee's academic supply for occupational demand report identifies information technology as a high demand field, which projects annual growth of 2.9% from 2020 to 2030, well above the average for all occupations. The report significantly highlights unmet needs for bachelor degree holders in computer system analysis and then computer and information sciences, which are areas directly addressed by the proposed program's interdisciplinary approach. Next slide, please. So, who are the target students? This program will be appropriate for 3 primary student populations. The first student population will be traditional students with interest in integrating computing knowledge within a cognitive area. Tennessee state government has emphasized the importance of computing education through recent legislation requiring at least 1 credit of computer science education for high school graduation, beginning with 2024-2025 ninth grade cohort. So this initiative helped to build a pipeline of students with a foundational computing knowledge. With the proposed program in place, students pursuing higher education will have an option to pursue a cross-disciplinary computing degree, not just a computer science. So the second student population will be adult learners in the workforce and military veterans. This student population includes individuals with experience across a range of disciplines who want to pursue a computing degree to enhance their skills in a given field. The proposed program enables them to integrate computing with knowledge gained from their past surveys and workforce experience. The third population will be the transfer students from community colleges who want to focus on practical application of the computing within a cognitive disciplines. Slide, please. So now I'm going to talk about enrollment projection and then cost and revenue projection. The proposed program will be implemented if approved by the board and also the commission in fall 2025. Enrollment is projected with 10 students in the first year and grow to 40 students, approximately 40 students by year 5. And these are conservative projections, even when we have external campus, he indicate, the number could be higher. And we really expect to have a higher enrollment for this program. The estimated cost to deliver the proposed program include both one-time and recurring expenses, starting at approximately $240,000 in the first year, and then raising to approximately $274,000 by year 5. Recurring expenses cover the hiring of a program coordinator or lecturer in the first year, funding for cognitive area campaigns, 50% of program recruiter's salary, and then costs associated with delivering and developing new courses. The projected revenue growth from about 114,000 in year 1 to approximately 512,000 by year 5, driven by enrollment increase more than offsetting program expenses. So in conclusion, the proposed program exemplifies Tennessee Tech's commitment to preparing career-ready graduates while addressing state workforce needs. By combining computing skills and expertise with discipline-specific knowledge, the program delivers a practical, applied education while maximizing institutions' resources through collaboration between College of Engineering and College of International Studies. So they are seeking board support and approval of the proposed program, so it can be placed on the agenda for the TTAC Commission meeting on May 15th. Once approved by TTAC, the students, freshmen or transfer, will have another additional degree options during the students' orientation. Thank you for your attention. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Dr. Howe?
So the person that's already entered to this player curriculum, they can pick this up in 2025, fall of 2025, they can start this path if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So is there something they should have done before then to be ready for that? Is this
I think it will take time for them to develop what exactly, for new, particularly traditional students or fresh. Will take time for them to develop the ideas about what will be their interest in this school. But the program will start in the fall semester, just like all of the other undergraduate programs. I believe in the first year, that's why the 2 departments of school develop 4 courses. In the first year, students will have opportunity to be exposed to computing and interdisciplinary studies. So there are new courses developed for the program. Yeah.
Dr. Ho, is it your expectation that you're going to recruit that many new students each year? Or will there be some robbing of other courses?
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, I think that those numbers are the enrollment. So, we do have another table in the proposal. So like first year 10 will be, so new students. like currently, we have about 150 students undecided. And then also sometimes, when we do survey, I think those are the population we target. And then we have a student transfer from computer science to other majors, or even transfer to interdisciplinary study. So we kind of consider, whether, this program will offer them the computing skills, but also, if they have interest in other areas, that will combine them, allow them to earn this degree.
One other question, what are you putting in place here? So if we get to the year 3, and we got five students instead of 20 students, how can we get rid of this program? Because it'll be too expensive.
No, I think typically we'll look at 4 years, years 3. If you will have a number, a little bit lower, I think we continue. But I tell you, I don't know if I should say this. When the team initially proposed this program, they expect the year 5 will be 200 students. But,
Can we accommodate that?
so it said, okay, let's make sure we got good start. And that's why the number was pulled down. And this number actually is a little bit higher when we present to external reviewer. At the year 5, at that time, we even just have a 30 student. They said that's really low.
It's an excellent question in more of a general sense, right, Mr. Stites? I mean, I'm not at all concerned about this, but if we did a program that wasn't, that I have a pretty clear vision how this is going to work, but if we weren't sure, what would we do, Dr. Oldham, if we got to year 3 and nobody was showing up for this party? What do we do then?
I think you have to look at these. We really have to look at all of our programs from a business perspective, I think. And I think with a new program, it's almost like a startup business in a lot of ways. So, yeah, I mean, you come out of the gate with a plan that you think is going to work, and you've got to be able to adapt, adjust, over the first few years to see if that's true or not, or if you need to tweak it. I would say probably by year 2, if you're not meeting projections on the financials, you need to be making adjustments, adapt to make it successful. And by year 4 or 5, if it's just not working out, then you look at taking it down.
That's great. I thought that was a great question, and then we don't talk about that ever. So.
Well, the provost, to her credit, the last few times she's brought up new programs, has addressed the point. I think because she knew I was going to ask the question.
And I'm embarrassed to say I forgot you'd asked it 2 or 3 times, but anyway, I was giving you credit for a great question.
Well, let me say that I very much support the idea of this. Early in my service here to the board, I was invited, if you can believe it, by one of the professors to come to her class. And I did that. And in that class, she had engineering students that had come. There was people in nursing that were there. And there was people in business who were there for the marketing aspects. And they were coming up with new kinds of inventions, if you will, for the hospital. Things that would help the nurses. And of course, the marketing would be to sell it, and then the engineers want to figure out the process. And to me, it was so refreshing to see the mixing of the silos of education in this university. And I think it could make us much stronger if we could continue that trend. So I support the idea. They're doing a good job here, in my opinion. But I don't want us to go down a rabbit hole and nobody ever
look at it again.
What's going on here?
Well, and you're right about that. Dr. Bruce has made a routine reporting to us of the programs that we have approved, and she's doing that every year, telling us what are the updates and what's working and what's not working as well. And to Dr. Oldham's point, we've had some tweaks, I think, on some of those that weren't working quite as well. But I guess that came out of your question that I forgot in the beginning. But anyway, I'm glad you asked it again because that's really good.
Well, it's a good I think it'll be a good program, and it will be one that will fit a specific niche for those kids who are going to be in the artificial intelligence area. And they first have to have real intelligence before they go artificial intelligence.
That's why I'm not qualified, right? Exactly.
Or me. Or me.
Other questions?
I have a question. I'm very interested in the co-relationship between computer science and the cognates. My degree's from here in mechanical engineering in German, so I kind of lived in this little put in one world, one put in
So
the
you
other.
understand what a cognate is? I had
I
to
did.
ask what a cognate was. I'll tell you the truth.
Well, and then there's also even within myself, I've always asked, was I an engineering student or was I a German student?
Okay, that's a good question.
And that's kind of I would say it's a concern a little bit because when I look at the cognates here, there's a lot listed.
Yeah.
So, if it's not really housed in computer science, we're putting it in interdisciplinary studies. And then the cognates, they're just listed as potentials, not necessarily like, hey, we're going to marry this program, like international business, for example, foreign language and business, a very clear marriage between the two. Here, it seems like it's very flexible between them. So what's the risk that we end up with more or less a half-baked computer science student and a poor nursing student? You know what I mean? Like they're falling in sort of a gap that doesn't really support them to help the program grow across multiple different areas.
Yeah, I think, for this program, even during our program review, the reviewer mentioned, you need to hold certain standards and then also to ensure the quality of programs. So one thing we talk about is we need to have cognitive area champions. So they are advocate program, but they're also actively seeking the ways for students to gain the skills, expertise in the cognitive areas. And then the other side will be, the computer science and also interdisciplinary studies, they will work together, help students to shape their cognitive areas. I don't know if I answer your question.
I mean, do you think that, I guess, of these potential cognate areas, is this targeted toward 3 of these programs where there seems to already be sort of baked in cognate champions that really want to embrace this sort of program?
Yeah. Okay. So those are just the 6 listed there. For example, they, kind of use of biology, common time size, and the program designed to require students to complete 25 hours in cognitive areas. So it's just, and also they need to complete 30 hours of computing. So this is sort of like guardrail, for students to make sure they got adequate hours in computing knowledge, but also, if students.
Sharon?
Yeah.
Sharon, to help with that, we already have people in some of those areas that have already expressed a strong interest in working with this program.
Mm-hmm.
So we already have someone in environmental sciences that said, yes, we want to be part of this. We already have some people in criminal justice that have stepped up and said, yes, they want to do that. We have some people in journalism who said that. So yes, we have already gotten some buy-in across campus. And as we were developing this, we talked to lots of different departments. Okay. And some were very interested, and some were saying, we may not be interested in this. Are we going to be forced to do this? And no, you're not going to be forced to do this at all. So we are talking to departments across campus to get buy-in from those departments. And then once we have a director, the role of that director is to go and build additional support from those programs that are interested and see a value between computer science and their discipline, their students.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding. I think I'm understanding it. Is the value of this program, because I'm looking at it a little bit from a business perspective. My company manufactures entry systems, garage doors, entry doors, all kinds of things like that. And I see a value of this of like, they push, let's say, computer science people on us, okay, IT people, and they don't get our business, right? So is the value or the idea of this is that somebody in, agribusiness is like, look, let's take these IT folks and let's right out of school or in school, get them to understand what we do as a business.
Yes.
That's the point of the program.
That is,
Okay.
Kind of, if I may, look at this third category here, this intersectional core. What we want, and actually on the first slide, we talked about these graduates live in an intersection of these disciplines. Some of our initial conversations over this is over this idea, actually there was this book called The Medici Effect. And the idea here is that the innovations over the past 50 years have happened in intersections between disciplines. They don't arise out of just one single area. It's the mixture of this, in a pot, say. And that's really what we want to build out of these students. We want these students that are going to live in that intersection. They're going to have the technical knowledge of computing, but also the knowledge of the disciplines, whatever those disciplines may be. So biology, for instance, right? So if I get someone that I don't want to label them an IT guy, there's a lot of education that they're going to have to go through in order to get what happens on the business side. But if they come out with that foundational knowledge in that discipline, foundational knowledge in computing, and then this intersection piece where they have knowledge about entrepreneurship, they have knowledge of conflict resolution, a number of other things that help them to navigate being in the center of all. That's the graduate one. And it's even more than that. We want students that choose this program to have chosen it, not come in and default and say, oh, well, I didn't make it here, so I'm going to land in this program. But rather, as a university, we will recruit students that see this as a value add and something distinctive to this university that they don't see in the rest of Tennessee.
Would you agree with the statement that the success of the program will hinge largely on the ability of these cognate departments to embrace the program?
Absolutely. But the partnership is extremely important.
And the computer science department. The cognates and the computer science. And I know you've got a passion for it, but you're part of that success as well.
In the College of Interdisciplinary Study, they have experience working with different departments on the campus.
I'm direct the interdisciplinary major on campus. And we're in this space. And when you were describing that, I like the term literacy in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Like here's a person with a good, solid computing core with a literacy to be able to engage that area. Like the person you were talking about really has no idea what they're walking into.
Yeah.
The partnership is important. Like we can't have there's legs to this. And without the partnership across the boundaries, this program won't survive. Right. So if we don't have, it's not even buy-in, like it's partnership. Buy-in means that you write off on it and you're like, okay, fine. But no, it's real engagement in what we do in this program. I've seen the programs like this not just survive, but thrive at other institutions. My last institution, we had a program.
Another thing.
Sharon, excuse me, Dr. Hoban, I think Fred had his hand up. I want to be sure we get his question in.
It really wasn't a question, and I think you guys have covered a lot of it, but I just from a business standpoint, we are looking for students that, or colleagues, frankly, that have this type of multidisciplinary understanding and that they can speak technology, but also can speak on the science side, in my case, or in a functional area, if you will. So I think this is a really great program. I think it'll be super important to market it well to businesses also, so that we really can find these students, because I wouldn't have known like, oh, I should be looking in interdisciplinary studies for these types of students. So I think that marketing on the other side will help to make this a really exciting and successful program.
Excellent points. Thank you. Now, Dr. Ho, I'm sorry I cut you off, but I wanted to be sure Trustee Lowry got to speak.
So can you go to the next slide, please? I know we list they are very much like either majors or concentration on campus, but like healthcare, we don't have a department, we don't have a majors, but that's another field, that can be combined, kind of get into the cognitive area. Of course, that department is doing a lot of work related to healthcare, so that could be another cognitive area. That is my point. So not necessarily majors and concentration, could be areas as needed. Yeah.
There, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, a lot of these cognitive areas seem really exciting, but I can see some students maybe favoring or being more interested in some over others.
Mhm.
Whenever the surveys were held, or even a conversation, have students or alumni or any other kind of person interested in this said this is a cognate area that we really should have and focus on?
Carrie?
I don't recall from the survey data that we got that detailed with speech from the students. It was a much broader conversation over whether or not this is something that would have aligned with what you're interested in.
Yes, Dr. Luna.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a little bit about resources for this. Looking at the proposal, a lot of the faculty who will be supporting this are computer science faculty who already have quite a lot, right? Because computer science has grown so much. So, I'm looking at the list of support folks, and 10%, even though it's only 10% each, is this above and beyond their current workload, or is this is already somehow baked into the classes that they're teaching? And I understand that there'll be an additional person that's hired, and an additional administrative associate half-time, but how does this, seems like computer science is growing and has resource and has resource issues. Will this compound those issues, or
Since this is computer science, person, I mean, you probably want to respond to them. And I can talk a little bit about the funding.
Right. Yeah. So creative management is always a big part of running a larger department, I think. So backfilling with adjuncts to be able to get some of these faculty into the initial offerings of those courses, because they will fall squarely in the expertise of those faculty that are listed. It is a phased rollout, right? So we won't have the program in place fully until we've had several semesters, and as we follow a cohort going through the program. And so, for instance, if I think about fall semester, for instance, I don't think we're on the hook for both of the courses that we propose. We're on the hook in one, and so there's a combination of adjuncts and others that will use there, and through investment of both dollars that we have in the college, as well as other resources that will come through interdisciplinary studies.
Yeah. And then there is a budget for amount of money champions. So we want to reward those people, they can support program, develop a course, even teaching courses. But also the money could be used to support adjuncts.
okay, because that was my question. So it sounds like it's this budget, and on the top of that, adjuncts to backfill these people's time. So the budget is actually greater that's needed.
No, the budget includes
It includes
adjuncts. Yes.
Okay, I didn't see that.
If you look, I think the budget
you.
line. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Rob. Tom, I believe you had your hand up for Trustee Jones.
Yeah, just a first comment is I agree with Fred. I do think this is a good program, that it should move forward. But general comment, I don't know if you've heard the term of vibe computing. I don't know if you've heard of this. I only learned about it recently myself, but vibe computing is the concept of AI generated software development. And the idea and the goal of vibe computing is that the software engineer never actually touches the keyboard. You simply speak to the AI and you tell it what you want it to do. And I think there's a lot of computer science applications that this is not practical because it's so technical. But for other business environments, nursing, manufacturing, almost anything you can imagine, if you can train someone to get to the point, the skill set is not actually writing code. The skill set is learning how to talk to the AI to get it to do what you want it to do to develop the software. And so just from that aspect alone, I think a program like this is fantastic, because you can have non-computer science engineers in the very near future developing code to do amazing things and get the data you want in a rapid fashion without having to go through, a normal software development cycle. If you're a nursing student and you just spoke to the computer and said, I really want to know how many students came through the ER in the last 6 months that had a broken arm, it can do it. So I don't know. I think it's a great start. And I think programs like this will grow tremendously as technology grows in this area. Thank you.
Definitely marketing is important, we need to do a good job.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask a question about the marketing. What will a person put on their resume as their job title when they graduate with this degree? Is it computing professional?
I don't know that. I don't think I've thought that far.
Okay, you need to think about that, because that's what you're trying to sell.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this because we have computer engineering and electrical engineering, and our computer engineering students sometimes have a hard time convincing an employer that they have a true engineering degree, because they think they're a computer scientist, and those are just not exactly the same things. We really need to be thinking about what is that person's job. And I'm all about this program, but that's your marketing job right there, is think about what are you going to call it.
How would you list that on your resume?
Well, they don't know yet, Thomas. They're thinking about it. That's the answer.
I think they ask AI.
Yeah. As a matter of, you could say computing professional, but I think you're going to have an explanation in there with that, right?
If you're a computer professional.
Anyway, just a question that I have. Yes, sir, Mr. Stites.
I have a follow-up question that kind of ties into what Jeanette was concerned about, and that is the budget. Since I'm chairman of the budget committee,
Yes, sir.
it's important for me to know that if the success of this course and this new program is the potential cognate areas. Glad to learn that.
Me too.
Or if that's where the success lies, then how are we going to ensure that it is being successful if it's pulling out from other students who would have graduated anyway and gone into this program, and we're not getting additional income, we're just transferring the income back and forth between departments? How are we going to know? Because when the provost comes back and tells the board, oh, we got 40 kids coming through this, it's wonderful, and we've ahead of schedule, but we don't even know that 38 of them were cognate students.
May I offer my answer to you would be this. I don't think I care. Unless they're transferring from a different department, then I guess I care. So I understand what's happening there. But if it's a brand new student coming in, incrementally, if we got 40 people that want to sign up for this program, then we're having a success, right? That's a success. If they would have been computer science majors, then that's a problem for computer science to decide, do they still have enough enrollment? If they're losing German majors, we need to look at the German department or the business department or wherever. They each have their own, as you know, kind of P&L that they have to manage. And it's just like, I'm sure in your business, you've had different lines of business, and somebody's a customer of this line of business one year, and next year they're a customer of the other line of business. That's only a problem for the line of business that lost the customer, right? So I would argue that it's not relevant to the success of this, but it is relevant. And we need to be watching all of our other departments and making sure that if we get up with 5,000 students in this department, the rest of the school can manage, right? But I don't think that's going to happen.
Can I add one more thing?
Please, go ahead.
I was thinking about this as well. I was kind of worried about it at first, and in my mind, I thought, really, the competition is losing a student to another
That's
university.
right. I think that's right.
It's not between the departments within tech. As long as the students are coming here and saying, hey, I can get what I need here, versus them looking and going, well, I can go somewhere else and get, this dual thing that I can't quite get at tech. So that made me feel a lot more comfortable, at least least without asking. But those
Can we
that's how I
measure
see it.
that?
That's a great comment,
Yeah.
Fred. And Johnny's asking, can we measure it? And I don't know if we can measure. Well, the fact they came here means they didn't go somewhere else,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's how you measure that. It's
Well, if I live in Cookville and I want to go to Tennessee Tech, and the choice is between this major or that major, can't count that person.
well,
But if you bring them in to Tech because of this program, that's a win for
well,
everybody.
I don't know how you ever know you brought them in because of that program, but you don't ever know that about any program, right? I mean, I came here to study electrical engineering, and I could have gone to a lot of other schools, but I came here for electrical engineering. UTC never knew I was even in existence, right? And they lost me,
Yeah.
but they don't know that. So I mean, I'm just saying, I think that I don't think we have to measure that as much as we do have to measure how is the university's enrollment holding up in general, and then how is this program's enrollment holding up? I think those are the critical things.
So if we had in place that metric that told us whether program was successful or not successful, to your earlier comment, then we could always see if we've got this program has got 50 new students, but we've have other programs who have lost 50 new students or old students, then it would be important for us to know that.
It's a great comment, and I'm going to ask Dr. Oldham and Dr. Ho to take that to Dr. Bruce, because what we've asked her to do is report to us how the new programs are holding up, right? So as we look at nuclear engineering, how are we doing with nuclear engineering? A lot of those students would have studied electrical engineering or mechanical engineering or chemical engineering if they hadn't studied nuclear. So we need to be asking her, are we bastardizing another program by creating this program? But the truth is, hopefully we're creating incremental, and we're keeping the students that we know want these specialized programs.
Well, I agree with Fred. We win when we bring people here who would not be here otherwise.
Right.
But I don't think we know that.
But I would argue we don't ever know what they might have studied otherwise. That's my argument.
Well,
Just
but you can,
comment, if you don't mind. I'm sorry, but if you have a program that is advancing technology and expanding the opportunities for students at the university, this is a win for the university no matter what. So if we have this program and you do have 40 students go in it, and you feel like these 40 students came from some other discipline, are you going to cancel it just because they came from somewhere else? No. You're going to say, this is a win for the university. We're going to continue to expand all of our programs, and this is good for the university. I don't see how it's such a horrible negative that
Dr. Oldham would like to speak, and then I think I'm
providing more opportunity for students to find fields and more modern disciplines that they need to be going into anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Dr. Oldham would like to speak,
Yeah,
and then I'm going to try to let us speak.
it's a really good question. Okay. And there's at least a couple of different ways of looking at this. And I think it's sort of been hit on, but in both ways, it's a win. Okay. Ultimately, any of our programs, in my view, are successful for one reason and one reason only, and that's if they're relevant. If they're relevant to meeting the needs of students and it's perceived to meet those needs, today, tomorrow, and well into the future. So the challenge is, one, to have degree programs that are relevant, that attract students. To your question, that's very true. And if this program hits that niche of relevance, then it will attract new students. I think that's pretty clear. The other thing, though, is if you get into the internal competition issue, if and universities, we're not alone. Universities struggle with this. Is that over time programs may step out of relevance, step out of fashion for whatever reason. It's not as trendy in some cases. Maybe it's not as important as it used to be. It's important as a university to constantly be recreating ourselves, constantly be pushing the envelope and developing on that cutting edge programs that are seeming to hit the niche of where the puck's going, not where it's been in the past. And so from that standpoint, if it does take a few students out of existing programs and they say, hey, this actually better fits what I think I need to be doing, with my career, then I agree with Tom. That's a win. Because one, you're better serving that student. Yeah, you might not have lost the student. The student may have stayed and got a degree in something that was good, but maybe not as good. And so I think this is, I really give a lot of credit to faculty and leaders who have helped get this here, because I think it's a win-win. And this is the kind of stuff we've got to be doing. This is a very limited risk level here for us as an institution. And it's the kind of risk we need to be taking.
I think Dr. Luna wanted to say something.
Yeah.
So I have a procedures question here.
Okay.
So the cost over 5 years, it's about a $1.25 million investment. And on here in our diligent, it's to recruit and retain 12 graduates. That's what it says here. But I also hear 40, but I also hear 200. And those are pretty big jumps, right? So process wise, do we vote based on what's here, or do we vote based on what number should I be using when I'm evaluating this? I'm just not sure.
Back calculated the budget. We had all day. I have a ton of questions about that part too.
Yeah, I think the number, we should go with the number on the proposal.
Okay, so 12 graduates, 505.
Okay.
Let me speak to this real quickly
Okay.
from my experience. When I was here, I had developed through the requirement of taking humanities credit an interest and then later a passion for the German culture and the German language. That's why I speak language fluently. That's why I worked for a German company for 20 years. But the German department or the engineering department was never in competition with the foreign language department throughout the entire time I was here. Reason was the engineering degree was going to feed my family. Just a German degree was going to be a tougher road up, right? So that cognate relationship put the onus kind of on the foreign language department to keep me engaged and keep me sort of
That's a good comment.
going along with the program that we had developed. There was no such program like this for me. There wasn't an opportunity to just get a minor and do 4 or 5 capstone style cognate classes and then get a degree. I would not have been here for as long as I was here had that been the case. So I am a huge fan of a program like this. But I know I'm perhaps repeating myself, but the engagement of the cognate portions of this is key. They are going to have to lean in on the students and keep their engagement in having their ability to have a foot in both worlds. So when I look at the budgetary aspect of this, where it says $5,000 per year for cognate champions, I think that's good. I think we have to compensate those professors to lean in on a program like this. But I would say $5,000 a year. Also, maybe that's just for budgetary reasons. That needs to be looked at in terms of how that is actually being done. If they just go through the training and everything and they become a cognate champion, but they never graduate a student that gets a minor in their area, they shouldn't be getting $5,000 a year for that. And on the flip side, if somebody really leans on the program and they're graduating all 12 of those students, then we should take that into consideration as well.
Amen.
Very good moment. Very good.
Terrific comments from everyone. And I would like to, just in the interest of time, because we've got another tiny little matter on our agenda today that I'd like to cover, and Clary is chomping at the bit to get to it. If you all don't mind, unless anybody has something really, really important that hasn't been said already, I'd like to move on if possible. And I would entertain a motion with respect to this recommendation. So would you mind, you're moving to approve the new academic proposal for a Bachelor of Science in Interdisciplinary Computing, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I think Ms. Rose seconded first. So, and is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Jones,
Aye.
Trustee Lowry,
Aye.
Trustee Luna,
Aye.
Trustee Lynn,
Aye.
Trustee Rose,
Aye.
Trustee Rudd,
Aye.
Trustee Stites,
Aye.
Trustee Harper.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And thank you all for all those great comments. And I think there was a lot of really, and I wish Dr. Bruce could have been here, but Dr. Ho and Dr. Oldham, I'm sure will share with her these comments. think there was a lot of instructive conversation in this today about how to think about future new programs, and particularly these intersection of the sets programs. I think it's a new challenge, and one that we're going to have to, and to be relevant, as Dr. Oldham says, we're going to have to see that a lot more. Thank you all again. Dr. Ho, thank you for being here today. And you're all welcome to stay, of course, but we do have another item on our agenda, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Stinson. Thank you guys so much. Turn it over to Dr. Stinson, who has a recommendation on the 2025-26 maintenance fees and mandatory fees.
Thank you. I'll start out by talking about the mandatory factors that the board has to consider. This comes out.
We don't have a microphone today, so if you can speak up a little bit, some of us have trouble hearing at the end of the day.
All right. So we'll talk about the mandatory factors that the board has to consider. It comes out of the TCA. And the first one is level of state support. I'm going to talk about that just a little bit. For the last couple of years, the state has provided funding for salary increases, and the dollars are dedicated to the salary increases. As a result of that, very little operating otherwise has come into the university. In fact, for 25-26, the amount that's available for other operating costs outside of salaries is $588,000. And also the dollars that came from the state for salary increases was only 55% of that cost. So that's kind of what we're looking at from state support. Mm-hmm. And that's been true for the last couple of years, 24-25. We only received $296,000 that was not dedicated to the compensation. I was recently in a meeting at THEC, and I thought this was kind of interesting. I hope you all did too. In 2004, the state actually provided 50% of the E&G operating costs, and tuition provided 50%. Of course, in 2008, that really started to diverge, and at one time, the state had dropped to 20% of the support. It is now at 39%. The state is providing 39%, and tuition dollars provide 61% of the cost of operations. So that just gives you some background on that. I'll talk about the other two in some of the other slides. This board also had some additional factors they wanted to look at. One of those was the next slide. Thank you. I'm sorry. The first one was, what is the THEC's mandatory tuition fee ranges? And for this year, THEC met in March and voted on a 0 to 6.5% tuition and fee range. A lot of that discussion is, as I'm sure all of you know, centered around a need for another institution that's having some real financial issues to have that flexibility. But they also stated, several commission members, that they expected that the rest of the institutions would not go to the 6.5. So we are not going there, and none of the others. Looking at comparisons, I've been talking to my counterparts at the other schools, and it is ranging from 2.5% to 5.5%. And I'll talk about which ones on that. And then the higher education price index, and this is an index that's calculated by Common Fund once a year. The number comes out in December, and so the December 24, which was based on cost from fiscal year 24, was 3.4%. And then, of course, we look at the consumer price index also. Next slide, busy. So conversations with my counterparts, Austin Peay State University's board has already voted, and they voted a 5% increase. ETSU is proposing to their board a 4.98% increase that has not met yet. MTSU is looking at a 5.5% increase the board has not met. University of Memphis, between a 4 and 5% they're kind of like us. They need the closer to 5% to cover some of their inflationary costs and make the salary match. As I said, TSU could potentially go as high as a 6.5. The community colleges is a 3.5, and then the UT campuses, UTK, UT Knoxville is proposing once again a zero increase. UT Chattanooga and UT Martin at 3% and Southern at 2.5%. So what we're proposing is an increase of 4.8% for our, and we call it maintenance fees, tuition. It is tuition, 4.8%. And then mandatory fee increase of 5.05 for a combined increase of 4.83. And that's for our undergraduate. We're also bringing a proposal for graduate. Now, graduate is not subject to TX bonding range. That's entirely up to this board. The maintenance fee increase that we're proposing for graduate programs is 5%, and mandatory fees, graduate programs are subject to those just like undergraduate. So that is the 5.85 for a combined increase of 5.01 graduate programs. Excellent. So we looked at the impact on full-time students for the proposed increase, and this is per semester. Undergraduate increase per semester would be $240, and then the graduate would be an increase, and this is tuition, of $286. Program services fee would be an increase of $35.
Is that new amount that's listed for the full-time flat rate?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to know.
That's a great question. It's a little bit confusing.
So the mandatory fee increase is proposed for a $15 increase in our facilities development fund, and that is dollars that we use for student-centric spaces. We have a hard time getting state money for those, and we do use those dollars for a lot of different areas. Even in the academic buildings, there's common spaces that the students use, and so we would replace the furniture with the boards or whatever is there, the common spaces. One in particular, and this is kind of surprising considering that the science building is relatively new, but we need to replace all of the furniture in the area where Einstein Bagels is. That place is
What? I'm sorry.
Einstein Bagels. That is one busy place, and so the furniture has been worn pretty well.
It's a good sign, I
That's
think.
the
right?
problem you want.
Yeah, that's the problem you want. Yeah.
And also we have some additional spaces that we want to do some things to in the RUC. We have furniture in the public commons area that we need to replace. So those are the kinds of things that we try to build some funds for this facility development fee. The second part is for the fitness center, and we are proposing a $20 increase per semester for the fitness center. These dollars would be used for operational costs, but especially for renewals and replacements of equipment and to add some additional equipment. One thing I'll say about the fitness center is they do have to operate within the funds that they generate, like an auxiliary. And so when there's a salary increase, they have to cover the whole, like 2.6%. They don't just have to cover the 45%. They have to cover it. Okay. Next one. So we also look at what is the typical net cost to students. And so I wanted to talk about this just a little bit. You can see what I have put together. The presidential scholarship, that is, there are different levels, but what the 2000 is typical. That's what most of our students fall into, that getting a $2,000 presidential scholarship. And then there is the Hope Scholarship. Now, the Hope Scholarship for freshmen and sophomores is less than what it is for juniors and seniors, and that's a part of the state's efforts a few years ago to get freshmen and sophomores into the community colleges. And so there is a difference there. And then I looked at the full Pell Grant, if a student was getting a full Pell Grant. So you can see there are dollars still left over from these financial aid items for the students to address their other costs.
Dr. Stinson, all these comments are per semester, right? All these numbers
They are per semester. Yes, they are. And but I just want to talk a little bit about the state scholarships, and we talk a lot about Hope scholarships. Hope Scholarship is a merit-based. It is provided by the state of Tennessee. But the state of Tennessee's state student financial aid is number one in the nation. Tennessee provides more scholarships and grants to students of higher education than any other state in the United States. And so that, I mean, it's pretty good. And so we don't talk about the
Community and for your student.
it is.
That's a great question too. So that does cover the community colleges also. Good.
It does. Some of the other programs that are available to our students is the Tennessee Student Assistance Award, which is a need-based award. It is in addition to the HOPE. It is handled by THEC as well as the HOPE is. There's a General Assembly Merit Scholarship, which would be an additional $500 on the HOPE for students who apply for
So
that.
those are not reflected here, correct?
They are not. And that is a merit scholarship. And then there is another program called Aspire, which a student can apply for, and they get an additional $750 in addition to their HOPE scholarship per semester. And the Aspire is need-based. So there of the four programs I've talked about, two of those are merit-based, two of them are need-based. So there is need-based scholarships available. One of the conversations that we had, and that's something that we will work on at this university too, is it's hard to find that information on TV's website, and so it's going to be up to us to try to help educate our students on what is available. I went in and started looking, and it took me a little while, and I messed around on the website quite a bit, but it still took me a while. But I did want to share that. And also, there is dual enrollment grants, which allows students in high school to take college level courses and get college credit for it. And it is a free course for the students. So that's just some of the information on what is available for students. Okay, you're ahead of me, Debbie. And so I also wanted to talk just a little bit about the impact on students that are less than full-time. And so for undergraduate tuition for students taking 11 credit hours or less, it would be an increase of $17 per credit hour. And the mandatory fees cap out at 6 hours. And so a student taking up to 6 hours would still pay the $11 per credit hour. With the graduate program.
Before you move on, maybe everybody else knows this already, but I looked it up because it wasn't on here. And when I was reviewing before this meeting, the base rate of a tuition, of their hourly tuition for hours 1 through 11 is $350 today. So we're going from $350 to $367, if that's helpful to anybody. And that's about 4.8% or whatever you said. And then, and for the graduate, it's $550 plus $27. So anyway, just to give you the base so that we got calibrated, right? Sorry to interrupt.
This is the increase. This is not what the established base rate that we already have. Graduate tuition, like I said, is $27. The graduates do pay for hours over 10, so they would have an additional $8 for those hours of 11, equal to 11 and above, and then of course they do pay the mandatory fee. So this slide just shows a comparison of And it's looking at the gross tuition amount for each one of the schools. And as you can see, Tennessee Tech, it was sort of in the middle of this graph. We are higher than most of the GIs, not very, very much, but we are. And I did project these as if, each one of us were going to do the tuition increase that we had, our boards were going to approve those tuition increases.
Chris has texted me that Tom put a question in the chat. Okay.
And Tom, yes, thank you. We're fine. But thank you for checking. I appreciate you checking in with us, but we're fine. We have enough people in the room. Plus we still have Fred on the phone. Tom's going to have to leave, I think, pretty soon. So
I'm sorry. If you get desperate to call me, I can step out of my meeting and vote if I have to.
okay. I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay.
I would say, just before I have to leave, I hate to ever raise tuition or fees, but it's also an important business decision as well. And I fully support the university's efforts to try to keep costs down. I'm in favor of this. I think it's a requirement at some point.
Thank you very much. And so Dr. Stinson, if you'll return to slide 17, I guess, right?
Okay.
But thanks for that, Tom. We appreciate that.
So on this slide, you can see that we have projected the increases, and the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga it's a little bit higher than Tennessee Tech, in about the same area, as well as UT Martin. UT Knoxville, of course, is quite a bit more expensive. UT Southern is a bit more expensive. And the rest of them, the Austin P, as I said, they've already approved it. Austin P is low compared to the other LGIs as well, and so is TSU. Those are the two low ones. The rest of us are pretty much in the same. So we went ahead and did a revenue estimate at a 4.8% undergraduate tuition increase, and that would give us resources of about 3.8 billion. And a 5% graduate would give us another 500,000. So I wanted to share with you all. So we've looked at our cost estimates, looked at, where can we reduce costs and all that sort of thing. And this is really where we are at this point from a cost standpoint. We do have some state mandated scholarships that we need to address, and some presidential scholars that we need to address, about 1.7 million. The 2.6 salary pool with its fringe benefits, 2.7. Faculty promotions, we're estimating those. We don't know for sure what that cost is, but it generally runs somewhere around 300,000. It may be a little less than that. More than likely, it's going to be a little bit more than that, but that's what we're looking at. The state health increase, that is, we did receive state appropriated dollars for that 762,000. So that is offset at $3 million state appropriation. And then we had other inflationary costs like utilities, software contracts, the marketing that we talked about in our last meeting. And those amount to about $2 million. So we're looking at estimated cost increases around 7.6. So we looked at state appropriations that we will get this year, $3,100,000 at a 4.8 and a 5% for graduate. That would generate $4.281 million, leaving us with a balance that we will look other places in our budget for $224,000.
I thought this slide was really helpful to understand the requirement for this, just personally. So I just want to compliment you and your team for pulling this all together.
That's all that I have. I'll be glad to answer questions.
So the dorms are all paid for by cash flow.
Yeah, but the dorms support themselves. This doesn't have anything to do.
Remind us what the auxiliaries are that are not supported by this, if you don't mind, Dr. Spencer.
So the auxiliary operations that we have on campus that's not supported is the housing, the press center housing, and its gallery. We also have the fitness centers operated as an auxiliary. Our food service, of course, is operated as an auxiliary, but it is outsourced with food service itself. Post office is another one that is an auxiliary. So we have a lot of operations that are outside of the energy. It's the
So from the student perspective, student went to tech and said, I think I'm gonna go tech. I'm standing door, I'm not gonna eat on campus. Full college experience, not what, without all the different scholarship opportunities there. What would that cost to do that for a semester or for a year?
well, we have different rates on different dorms, but it's about a three. I think it's about a $3,000 cost per semester for housing. And the same thing applies to our food service. Students can select different meal plans, and depending on what plan they select, then there's different costs on those meal plans.
Roughly 2,000.
Something like that.
So
It kind of surprised me. I worked on some data recently, and I wish I could remember, but the cost per meal was pretty low. It actually pretty low. Like breakfast was $7. If you look at what they actually food services actually charge, I think lunch was somewhere, if they bought a meal plan, somewhere around $12, and then dinner was around 20. If they took, and that's the problem with the students, if they buy the parents, they or their parents are paying for a plan, they have to use it.
sure.
And if they're not using it, of course, it's really expensive. But the per meal cost is not that significant if they use it. Now, we do have one plan that allows students just, you could eat 6 times a day or 7 times a day if you wanted to. And some students do actually buy the meal plan. That is if you only did 3 meals a day, that's going to be a little expensive. But they can go in and do snacks and all kinds of things.
So in general, yes, are we talking 10,000 a year, 12,000 a year? To come to school here, average number of courses, be on the campus, be in the dorm, around 12,000. Is that it?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably closer to 15.
15.
Yeah.
So,
And then we do a cost of attendance budget, which considers a lot of other things besides just those. And it's over 20,000 total cost of attendance.
20,000 a year for a student. Okay. And they get
It's high. So,
But that includes all their living expenses and all of that, and everything, transportation and everything. Yeah.
it takes into consideration, a computer, for instance. Whether a student needs to buy that or not is different, but it is calculated in the cost of attendance.
outside. Oh, yes.
And so, and the higher, of course, the cost of attendance is, the more financial aid students can receive. So they start this basics that I showed you today with financial aid. You start with those basics, and then they start adding additional, like I talked about, scholarships that are available to the students. And through the state, there's other federal that I haven't talked about in the SERG, the Federal Work Study. And there was another thing, I meant to mention this with the fitness center. The fitness center offers employment to the students. They use a lot of student workers. And so that's something else that, like, I've had some students talk to me about, one, there's not enough equipment. And
That's a good repair.
And we need to make sure it's repaired because the hours in the pool. And so, the fitness center is trying to uh, optimize what people are going to be using the pool because they have to have a lifeguard. But they have a training program. They will train uh, current students to be lifeguards. But they have other things, how the climbing wall, things like that, and they can use students. So they part of that does provide on-campus opportunities, employment opportunities for students too. And that's outside of federal works that in addition to that with students.
Do we have any idea approximately what percentage of the students use the fitness center on an average?
We are, I didn't, I'm sure the fitness center has that data. I didn't ask, but I know that I go usually at 6. The daughter talked about this before, at 6 in the morning. And during the school year, it is pretty busy at 6 o'clock, and most students do not like to get up at 6 o'clock.
Can we just ask you to maybe find that information and share it with us? I don't think it's necessarily required for today's decision, but I think it'd be very interesting to have. Mr. Ray, if you'll just follow up with Dr. Stinson.
My understanding is in the afternoon and evening, it is very, very busy. That's what students that are talking to me are telling. It's very busy.
Whenever I go in the late afternoon, it's packed. I have to sometimes wait like 5 minutes to get on the exit, but it's usually pretty busy around 4 to 5 and after classes.
And just to make sure I understood the answer to Trustee Lynn's question, your answer was approximately 20,000 with housing.
It's a little bit.
A little older.
I can't remember exactly what financial aid had told me to do. It cost them.
20 to 25,000 maybe?
Oh, I did. It may be closer to 25.
On that same note, I noticed that you included Pell Grants, but how many students are actually receiving a Pell Grant?
There's over 50% of our students who actually do receive Pell. Now they don't all receive the full Pell. That is what I have shown as a full Pell Grant. That's for the students who really have pretty extreme needs. They get full Pell Grant, but it does adjust, and it also adjusts based on the number of hours that this is for.
Other questions for Dr. Stinson? It's very helpful.
Yeah, I have two comments rather than questions. Well, one of them is kind of a question. The first one is, I know students have spoken to me about this on campus. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've gotten emails, and I want our students, I want anyone who listens to this to know that, as board members, I read through 171 student comments, right? So I want people to feel that their comments are heard and that they're valued, and that the overwhelming thing I took away from that is how difficult this economy is for our students. And the thing that I would want to share with them is that it's also difficult on our side too, right? That what they're seeing in terms of their costs increasing, we're also seeing in terms of our costs increasing just simply to run a university. So I empathize with all of those comments, and some of them are quite colorful. Some of them were actually quite heartbreaking. So that was powerful to read through that, and I want them to feel heard.
That's a great comment. So let's just stop and have a second about that, because I did as well. And I thank you for that. And thank you for bringing it up, because this is not an easy decision, as Tom mentioned. So,
yeah. The other thing that I took away from those comments, though, that is adjacent to this, and I think is something going forward that the board will want to think about, is how athletics fits into the Tennessee Tech brand. And I understand there's a misconception that tuition pays for athletics, and it doesn't. And so that was clear, and I understand that. But we do spend other resources supporting athletics. So we fundraise a lot. We give people's time and energy in the foundation that are trying to build those athletic programs. And it really doesn't come across in these student comments that that's something that is necessarily student driven. And I know we have a lot of board members who are former athletes, and I love my student athletes. So I'm not saying that athletics is not important, but I think somehow we need to do a better job of improving the communication about athletics and what value it brings to the university, and making sure that when we have resources like the foundation, not only are we fundraising for athletics, but we're also fundraising for additional scholarships, right? If 50% of students are receiving Pell Grants, then maybe the other 50% are clearly needing more scholarship support. So that could be an area for focus in future years. So thanks.
Excellent comment. And I don't think it's any secret to the folks here, particularly to those of you who were athletes, that athletics has never been my big focus. Dr. Oldham and I have had lots of conversations about this.
You've come a long way.
I have. I tell you, when I started, I didn't understand why we needed any of that, and it would be just fine with me if it all. 'Cause I'm the nerd, right? I can't even walk across the floor without falling down, so I'm not interested. But I will tell you, Dr. Oldham has spent a lot of time with me, helping me understand and just observing. And this is very anecdotal. This is not the presentation you are asking for, Dr. Luna, and we need to do that. We need to give a more fulsome reporting to this board about what the impact is of athletics. But I've had opportunities to see what it means to not have an athletics program at a university and how that looks and what it looks like for us. And the thing we don't want to do is have an athletics program that isn't a success. That's the thing that we would be silly to do, right? Is to have one that's failing. Am I saying that right? Because that's where you are spending money on things that really aren't bringing you a whole lot of value. But we've had a lot of value from our athletics programs, and I'm very, very proud of that. But it has taken me a long. I've been on this board for, I don't know, about approximately 150 years, and I've come a long way in understanding. I came on with you, Johnny, so that means you and I have been on about the same amount of time. But I'm starting to understand it slowly, but I do think it's worth it to the rest of the university to hear some of that. So perhaps we could have a session on that at some point where the students could also listen in and understand what it means to those of us who aren't athletes, to understand what it is to have an athletics program at the university.
I just want to kind of echo some of Trustee Luna's comments. I also read through all of the public comments and have had students talk to me and say what's going on, and a lot of it is rooted in misconception about the funding of athletics. And so I've always cleared that up for students, but they did bring up a lot of different things. You know, students are struggling. That's true. Everyone is struggling. A lot of them talked about, I don't get enough federal aid, and so I want more scholarships. A lot of people referenced, I want more opportunities for scholarships. And kind of like you were talking about, Dr. Stinson, there's a lot of great scholarships with state. I think that a lot of the misconceptions and the frustrations that have arisen from this tuition increase, this proposed increase in students, is they feel like they weren't informed. As a student who is here at the table, it's my job to be informed. But not all students know how to access some of the information. I think that a lot of them talked about, and again, I am not agreeing with this, but a lot of students referenced poor planning, poor financial planning, poor planning of the university. And as we know, we've heard you say multiple times, we are one of, if not the best financially planned universities in the state, and that's backed up with data. So I feel like there's things that we see as a board at this high level and that we're so privileged to see, but some of these things students don't see. And I feel like, I'm not going to be in part of this decision-making process for much longer. Like I'm off-boarding in June. But with how things are looking and with the outcomes of state funding, specifically this year, I totally understand and I see the need for this increase. And I see that steps have been taken to make sure that, it's as low as possible. But when looking at that compounded with increases in housing as well, I feel like looking forwards to the future, I just encourage board members to remember these conversations and to remember the physical impacts on students about these decisions, which I know you all do. But if these increases are continual, and I'm not saying that we have a huge trend yet, just in the past couple of years, there's been a 5% increase, and then now we'll have that with increases in housing. which, are necessary from what I've seen. But just looking to the future, whenever these decisions are made, trying to find ways to communicate with students, make sure that they know. There's always going to be people who are disgruntled. I mean, students are not, no one's going to want to pay more tuition, but I feel like if they see physical things that are like, oh, this student lounge was created with some of the fee money that I paid into. I like this. It's a good outcome for me. I am more in support or more neutral when it comes to different tuition increases. So that's kind of a long-winded way to say just letting students have a sneak peek more into how these conversations go, learning more about the financial planning and the master plan of the university. I think we've even talked about that at board meetings before, trying to figure out how to connect students with this information that we
challenge for us every time we propose a new building, every time we propose any kind of an increase. It's how do we let the, I mean, we've been working on it for years, but how do we let the students know it's coming? It's very, very challenging. I would suggest, however we do it, the slide 19 that has that Tennessee Tech estimated cost increases, this slide that's on the board right here, I think this is the most compelling thing that if I'm a student, I don't know whether I understand this or not, but if I'm a business student and I don't understand this, they shouldn't graduate. Right? That's what I will say. I feel like this is really compelling. And so hopefully this will help you as you communicate and others as they think about it. But that's a great comment, Clear. Thank you.
Can I add one comment and not to prolong this, but I love this slide. I think there's another slide as it relates to communicating with students that looks at what's happening in the macro as well, whether it's Tennessee or the nation. There's real inflation, and we're not immune to it, and we have to acknowledge it and do our part to become more productive, of course. But I think there's another lens that, hey, this is what's actually happening in the world around us as it relates to Cookeville and Tennessee Tech, and we should just be really clear about that in communicating with students.
Trustee Lowry, that's an excellent point, and it's a shame that our higher ed price index or whatever it's called runs 2 years in arrears, because that number would be the thing that you're talking about, but we're looking at one that's fiscal year 23 or something like that. So, and I realize it's all, you have to be looking in the rearview mirror. You can't predict. It's a lagging indicator, not a leading indicator. But Fred is exactly right. There are other ways we could do that, I bet. So that's a great comment.
I think there's two data points that are important to answer the student questions. First, Tennessee Tech is, if not the lowest, very close to the lowest cost to attend of any university in Tennessee. The second data point is the graduates of Tennessee Tech University have the highest income, if not the highest, they're one of the highest in the state of Tennessee.
Which is what I remind students of all disciplines all the time. At the end of the day, your education has an ROI calculation.
Sure.
It does cost you, yes, but over the lifespan of your career, you are far better off having gotten a degree, really almost anything, than not having gotten a degree.
But that point doesn't make it to the newspapers.
Yes.
A school that has $9 billion of endowment comes out and you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to that school, and maybe they're the highest in the world. I don't know. They sure graduate a lot of morons out of that place.
Well, Trustee Rudd kind of leaned over to me when I argued slide 19 was compelling. He argued slide 17 is compelling as well, which is, it doesn't say exactly that we're the lowest, but it certainly says we are competitive.
Well, not just that, but I mean, if students are comparing, or if anyone is comparing, our increase to other institutions' increases, right. Every single institution that has lower increase than ours is already at a higher basis. Mm-hmm. So.
I'll just add to that real quick. The institutions, there is a correlation here. The higher cost institutions are also the institutions that are growing in enrollment.
when you think about price elasticity and you argue we get too expensive, we won't get students. Dr. Oldham's argument is that hasn't been the case for other schools. So I think that's also helpful.
They're able to absorb the inflation.
Correct.
Well, this cost here on slide 17 does not count the scholarships, does it?
No, this is just tuition and
So
fee.
we give out more scholarships, do we not, than many universities?
Well, these are all great comments, and I think you all are exactly right. We've got to figure out how, with everything we do, how do we make sure our faculty, our staff, and our students, not necessarily in that order, understand the reason for our decisions, and hopefully these meetings being transparent and publicized and televised, and those of you out in TV land that are watching, hopefully you're hearing what we're talking about here, and the people who really care, I think, do listen and watch. I hear from alumni that they watch our meetings online. That just makes my head explode because I think get a life. But anyway, sorry for those of you who are watching that. But for our students, faculty, and staff, I think it's really good that if you can listen, you'll learn a lot about what we're thinking. Well, what other comments or questions do we have for Dr. Stinson? Heard some spectacular comments. Well, hearing no other comments, at least at this point, we will have one more chance for that, but I would entertain a motion. Can you move the specific? Hello? Can you move the specific motion, Mr. Seitz? Do you have it?
Sure, I do. I move that the Board approve the recommended fiscal year 25 and 6, 4.8% undergraduate maintenance, a 5% graduate maintenance, and a 5.05 mandatory fee increase for the coming year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Rudd. Now, are there other comments or questions? Other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. That's feedback from me. Anyway, hearing none, we will take a roll call vote, Mr. Secretary.
Trustee Lowry.
Aye.
Trustee Luna.
Aye.
Trustee Lynn.
Aye.
Trustee Rose.
Aye.
Trustee Rudd.
Aye.
Trustee Stites.
Aye.
Trustee Harper.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Well done. Thank you again to Dr. Stinson and her staff, Dr. Oldham. You all did a tremendous job of pulling together and making a tough decision easier to make, because there's really no argument that this was the right thing to do. So I'm glad we're in the game. I'm glad we are paying our faculty and staff what they deserve. That's really important, and that's part of this increase. And I'm so glad that our students are getting, I really do believe they're getting a really quality product. And those of us around the table that are graduates are examples of that. So, all right. Do we have anything else that needs to come before the board at this time?
We do not.
Well, hey,
yes.
just real quick. First of all, thank all of you for leaning into this, for really discussing, questioning, probing. I appreciate it greatly. Appreciate your support. It's ultimately providing a great quality educational experience for all of our students, and did a great job with this. Just real quick, and we can go through a presentation at some point in the future, but there was some revision to some announcement around the Carnegie classifications.
Yeah.
We're going to email that out.
Well, we will email that out to everybody, but and I want to give credit to Dr. Lou. Dr. Lou's here with us, and he did a great job of doing some analysis of that. But the bottom line, as you will see, is that we are in a new classification. We're still a Research 2 university. That hasn't changed. But in terms of classifications for universities, in a new category called high access and high opportunity, okay, which speaks really well, and it dovetails with the conversation we just had about the ROI of an education at Tennessee Tech. And we are in a very small class of institutions that are in that category, and it's the right people to be associated with. and it speaks to the quality of the education that students get here. So yeah, look forward to seeing that, and at a future meeting we can go into more detail on that if you want to.
Do you want to give us a quick little?
Oh,
little bit?
yeah, sure.
I mean, not that anybody cares, but in
Yeah,
moments.
so I mean, we track about this time of year, we start tracking in earnest the registrations for the fall semester. And so, I'm delighted to share that as of right now, we still got a lot of work to do with land freshman class, but as far as continuing students, we're up about 7% over this time last year in returning students. So it's substantial. If all the indicators show that we're going to be very close, if not at 11,000 students in the fall. So it's
If we're at 10,995, I'm gonna go find 5 people.
yeah. But so it's looking good. But there are some. We still got a lot of challenges, particularly with the freshman class coming in. But assuming we can land that class in numbers we've seen the last 3 years, we're going to be in pretty good shape. So.
We've always worried about the so-called cliff.
Yeah, so there's actually the demographics for Tennessee, particularly Middle Tennessee, show an increase in college age students. So there's no cliff here. The challenge is going to be everybody else coming into our backyard to recruit these students. So the competition level's higher, and that's I don't want to prolong this, but that's why continued reinvestment that we're making into this campus and our programs is so vitally important. You don't want to quit investing because once you start that, then you're going to start losing.
We know what that looks like. We've all been involved with businesses that quit investing. We are seeing them anyway.
So we know, and you've mentioned in the meeting, that things we build, improvements we've made are impactful on our students and our alumni and our donors. So is there anything wrong with us posting some of this data, that one that you just talked about?
No,
that
nothing at all.
Affirm the ROI that we've successfully been able to show here compared to, you don't have to compare them, but just show that our ROI is very good. And talking about things like we are tearing down the West Stadium, but none of that money comes out of tuition.
Yeah.
Because students are busy. They're doing all the things they have to do, and they're going to get lazy when it comes to watching this meeting, getting the information straight out that we have access to. And when in my business, I posted outside the door of the people who were responsible for that metric, how they were doing. It's amazing how that metric improved.
Yeah.
So if we had something like that in the student center, that language start to go around among the students. Have you seen the return on investment here? And they'll of course improve it, which is good too, because they're going to speak it up and talk about it, share it with each other. I don't see why that would be bad for our university.
And making sure they understand how much is coming from tuition and how much is coming from state dollars as well, because I think a lot of times we fail to pay attention to what's happening in Nashville, and yet what those folks are doing and the decisions they're making have a big impact on what's happening at Tech too. And so we need to occasionally tell those folks thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. One other quick thing. Of course, commencement is next week, next Friday, and Perna Segurty, former member of this board, will be our commencement speaker. And as you all voted at the last meeting, we'll be receiving an honorary doctorate at that time. So look forward to having Perna here. We've gotten some press releases out about that, I think, and there will be some opportunities to interact with Perna, probably for the board evening before, if you're available, that kind of thing. So look forward to that.
And one more, since we've got a few more minutes, can we give us an update? You've seen Barry Wilmore.
Oh, yeah,
since
sure.
he's
Yeah.
been back on
Yeah.
Earth.
Yeah. Is an
I
earthly.
don't say that very often about many people, but yes.
Yeah. He didn't turn green or have 5 thumbs or anything while he was in space. No, Barry's great. He's doing exceptionally well. He was recognized, honored at the Tennessee General Assembly a couple of weeks ago now, and he's what an amazing representative of Tennessee Tech, of the state of Tennessee, of anything good.
Did I understand it correctly? He presented a flag that he had flown in the space station the
He
whole
did.
time he was there,
Yeah,
Tennessee flag. I don't know if
Tennessee
you all
state-
saw that.
Tennessee state flag, and he made the point that it was the only state flag that had flown in the space station, at least while he was there. So I don't know. Yeah.
Anybody else have anything else they need to talk about, or if they didn't mean to take up your time, but I thought you'd want to know about some of our alumni members and current board members. So, well, thank you all. Our next meeting is
June 26th.
June 26th, and I think we have a social the night before. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so everybody plan to be here then. Fred, it's great to see you, and Tom, we appreciate you being on. I know you've dropped off by now, but thanks to all of you again. This is a great board, and I appreciate you all. See you next time.
That's that.
Bye, bye.
A big John.